Hopefully we'll need it.
Yes. But I did print it out. I don't know.
Now we're not muted. Disabled participant screen sharing.
And participants.
So we're going to start the meeting. Let's call to order 10 p.m. 5:10 p.m. All right, let's double check our attendance here. Dr. Macaluso will be here shortly. Presume Dr. Iverson as well. And let's pull up the previous meeting minutes. Let's go through the previous meeting minutes and make sure they're accurate, and then we can approve them. So the Safety and Technology Committee last met on November 10th at 5:30 p.m. here in the Woodlands Middle High School Innovation Lab. We called the meeting to order at 5:36 p.m. In attendance were Mr. David Leese, Ms. Lisa Raymond, Dr. Christopher Macaluso, myself, Trustee Chris Vallon, Trustee David Warner, and Dr. Iverson. We covered the election of the committee chair, the adoption of previous meeting minutes, committee charges. We talked about safety, the emergency management system, which will be tabled till after the security audit that was just approved last night by the board. We talked about security presentation. A rough overview was given to us on activities that happened during the superintendent's conference day in terms of refresher training for the security team, the safety audit I just mentioned we approved last night, and the conversation around radios and the need for refurbishment of radios, as well as additional radios will be had in the future, as well as additional cell towers being looked into for potential deployment on the campus. Technology, we talked about the website, staffing, how that will mesh with that project, the rebuild of the website, and the CECC potentially being a conduit to provide feedback to the website implementation committee. Since then, I have gone ahead and put the CECC chair in contact with our CIO, Mr. David Leese, so they have connected for further steps there. We also covered daily support and maintenance of the website, how that will work. We had an update on the one-to-one device program and had a conversation around the insurance program options, accountability protocols, policy and agreements that will be discussed in a future meeting, and a status update on our current Chrome device fleet. We also talked about the board website, historical purpose behind it, and the future, which will be determined at a later meeting. And then in new business, we talked about network infrastructure, wireless connectivity, bandwidth capacity considerations, and student transcript process. From there, we closed the meeting and went into closed session. During closed session, we talked about safety and technology related issues, specifically around student safety. And then we went ahead and closed the meeting. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Meeting minutes are approved. All right, so we get to today's meeting. Today's meeting is a little earlier than normal, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., and we're going to do our best to get out of here as quickly as possible. Due to scheduling, it is the month of December. We have a lot of activities in the schools, as well as the holiday coming up at the end. So with that said, tonight at 7 p.m. is the Woodlands Middle High School concert, the middle school concert actually at 7 p.m. in the auditorium. So we were going to run through this as quickly as we can so we can make it over to the concert. Number 2, committee charges. So I have not had time to touch this one yet. I do have to circle back with Dr. Iverson because this type of committee, typically the superintendent sets the committee charges and then we review them and approve them. So I have to follow up with Dr. Iverson. So I'll make them up here for me to do that. Okay,
And I want to make the comment that we need to make sure that the strategic plan is linked to our charges. So the link needs to go in both directions. All right, 'cause I think we have a bunch of facility stuff in that plan, but we don't talk specifically, other than at a very high level, about technology. We need to fill that in.
Okay. And I'm just going back to the charges, I think Dr. Ellison's input is what we need, but I'm just gonna point out that this is technically a committee of the board. I think we can
Yeah.
set our own charges as well, but I think we need her input.
you're right. You know what happened is it used to be the technology committee was a district committee, and the safety and security committee was a board committee.
Yes.
And then when we merged the two a few years ago, we kind of just consolidated the charges and ran with it.
Which is why I think we can set up the charges, but I think we need her input. It's just a point of policy, specifically 2210.
You, those comments are very helpful. All right, item number 3, safety.
I just have a couple of things. If you, just to let everybody know, as we spoke last night, Mr. Lees, no, you're Mr. Lees. Mr. Pugliese is looking into the vape detectors that we'll put in all of the bathrooms here at the Woodlands Middle High School. So that's ongoing. I have,
Can we include Bailey in there too?
certainly, sure, most definitely.
Or consider it?
Yes, yes. I also have asked all of the principals and directors to do an inventory of their radios. Some of our radios are quite old, and as we have experienced during situations, sometimes if Mr. Lees was somewhere in this building and I tried to radio him, he couldn't hear me. So we're trying to, I want to upgrade. So I've asked all of the schools and all the principals and directors to please give me a list of how many they need and who would get a radio. Then I can go to a company and ask them to give us a price. And or we were hoping to tie that in with that, do I have it right, repeater? Or what is that thing that Dennis looked into so we could get cell service here? Which he did verify that it would be for all service providers.
Yes, it'll be covered, all service providers will be covered under the repeater system.
Right. So we're in the process of doing that.
And did I hear something that I was mentioned before about a possible cell tower?
Well, we were looking into, and we still are, and actually that started with Mike Falcone, that we were in talks with, say, like Verizon Wireless, where they put a cell tower here. I guess it's quite the process to get that done. Dennis hasn't abandoned talking with them. He is still talking with Verizon, but this option was faster
Yeah.
for us to do and cheaper. It would cost us approximately $40,000 to do this.
When we talk about cheaper, I mean, isn't it true that some cell providers
They'll pay us.
are paying, right?
They'll pay us.
Right.
They'll have a
They-
long-term
right,
lease, and they'll
right.
take a piece of property. They tried to do this with.
And they would
these
pay us,
companies.
they would pay us like a monthly rent.
And they just feed you a little money at a time, and they have to have access to the thing. and
Right.
Put a big fence, they put a big fence around it so nobody can get close,
Right.
Right, exactly.
which means Morton House site is probably not a bad option if we want to go there, but that's for another committee.
Interesting.
Then you get into the debate about the 5G.
Right,
Yep,
yeah, you have safety concerns, you have.
Well,
neighbor
I think
issues.
another consideration will be, even if you put a tower in closer proximity, that'd be great for outside, but you're still contending with the construction of the building.
Mhm.
right, so you still need the repeaters regardless. So you do the repeaters now.
Thank you, Mr. Warner.
Yeah. And we are in the process, I've met with Mr. Smith and Mr. Santos today, and we are in the process of hiring those additional 3 security. Staff.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? Okay.
That the additional three security staff are to be here
They will
or
be
they're
housed-
spread throughout the
Well,
district?
they will be housed here, because they most certainly could be used here, but they will also be floating. Okay, so for, like that example I gave last night, when somebody has two and one is out, we could always take one and put them in another building and it won't affect this building.
Okay.
Oh, and one other thing, I checked today about the vestibule. They're still waiting for materials.
Yep.
The contractor is still having a hard time getting some of the materials to start that project. So I asked Mr. Pugliese to please get in touch with Jim Waybig or Fred Siba and talk to them, about what the issues are, because we expected it to be done this month and it hasn't even started. So what is their plan B? Where are these materials and why aren't they getting here?
So I mentioned after a certain point, won't the weather impact when they can start?
Yeah, if the ground freezes.
I've been told that they can tent, with a little bit of concrete work they need to do, they can tent those areas and put heaters under the tent and get the concrete dry that way, because it's not that large an area. So it won't stop them, it might make things inconvenient.
So I'm trying to, hopefully by next week's meeting,
Yes, hopefully.
we'll have more information.
Well, silver lining, we're getting to a concert season before that started.
This is true.
Did they specify which materials it is that we're?
They didn't say what
Storefront.
storefront,
So the glass and the framing.
which does make sense because in another building that was going to need some glass, there was a huge lead time to get that also, so.
Right, so nobody has come back to me and said, we're slipping beyond January, but they haven't.
We'll find out,
Yeah.
we'll find out definitely for next week's meeting.
All right, Mr. Lees, moving on to technology, website update.
Sure, so first I want to just thank the collective thinking of the group as we work through a number of the variables of the website upgrade and the considerations that we have. Unfortunately, I'm here to report that we hit a little bit of a snag in the final review of the contract. We seem to have come to a somewhat of an impasse on some of the language around some of the sections within our our legal contract boilerplate. We've spent considerable time working with our attorney and their legal department, trying to find a middle ground with what I believe is more than reasonable compromises from our end. But I think where we're at, we're just not able to meet the middle in the language. And I don't think it lends us to opening ourselves up to a potential liability that I would want to continue to recommend moving forward in this direction with this contract. So at this point, I'm suggesting and recommending that we go back out, and I'll take on that task to go back out and reopen the search for vendors and propose a new vendor to you with options similar to the scope of work and to the variables that we were looking at and discussing and fall within that framework.
Is this the boilerplate language we have for
Correct.
confidentiality and student?
No, it's not
identifiable
specific to the
information or
third
what?
party. Yeah, no, it's not specific to a third party vendor agreement. It's actually within the boilerplate framework of the contract language, specifically under section 22 of termination of contract is where we seem to be missing each other in coming to some agreement.
Okay.
And we can discuss that a little further in closed session if you'd like to give you more detail on that. So that's that. I've already started.
Sorry,
So I'm
before you
sorry.
move from that one, when we're doing this next iteration, I know there were a few trustees that have requested if when you come to us with your next panel, I guess, of options, if you can touch on some of the features and the comparison between them, almost like a bake-off kind of thing. The document, so we can understand, okay, the difference between what we have today versus the other ones, just for clarity for those that are not as techie savvy.
So similar to what we did with the emergency management system
Exactly.
with that matrix.
Exactly.
Sure, I can
Thank
do
you.
that. I have already started looking at other vendors. I've had actual meetings with two, and I'm expecting to have another one in the next week of a third. Consequently, in a new development, our current service provider, who's Blackboard, has been purchased by Final Site. And they come with a new host of upgrades and features that Blackboard didn't have or doesn't have currently. So that's one of the ones I'm going to look at. If they are going to offer the type of services and platform that we were looking to move to, and they'll help us migrate that, not only will it probably save costs for us by not having to switch vendors, hopefully it'll get us to that level of quality and branding that we want to do and accomplish, and especially ease to the community and navigating through the website and accessing information. So that's one of the ones that I'll be investigating. So I'm happy to put that together in a comparison.
Thank you. And did I get that right? Final Site, is it spelled that way? Or did I?
That was my guess.
That's what I guessed. I don't know if it's.
No,
Oh, I
it's
see.
Final Site.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. That's exactly correct. Yes. So some good news on the one-to-one device program front. Again, I want to thank the support of the board for the appointment of our new educational technology specialist, Ms. Verdina. She's been an incredibly wonderful and large addition to this department, as she comes with bringing a lot of utility to the day-to-day work. One of the things I had her jump into immediately was helping me start to wrangle in all of the one-to-one components of our one-to-one device program. So we've been moving forward expeditiously with fully implementing our asset management system that we've procured. You may recall from our last meeting that I discussed that previous to my arrival that we've been using in-house methods for keeping track of assets around the one-to-one devices and spreadsheets and whatnot. And since then we're moving and we've now procured and are implementing a formal asset management system that has full analytics, allows us to then do projecting, replacement scheduling, budgeting, and all of those pieces to just allow us to be much more efficient and much more accountable. So that's moving along very well.
Excuse me, is that school dude? Or is that a
No,
different
that's separate.
system?
That's a separate.
That's a separate piece, correct. And then I'd like to also thank Ms. Raymond with her collaboration, where we were able to put together with some of the remaining funds from the COVID emergency funds to make a purchase in this school year for another round of Chromebook devices to help support our one-to-one device program for our students for the remainder of the school year as we move through the next phase of planning and budgeting. Lastly,
How many?
I initially think we're looking for an additional about 125 more devices for this year to help supplement, and that roughly will break out to about 30 per building, and then that will also leave some in reserve for us to have in.
And that would be, that's from the CRISA funds, the CRSSA funds.
Thank you.
It's still not like a 30% renewal rate, that's just to supplement the devices that are broken and missing and.
Right, that's exactly right. That's really just to get us through this year.
Okay.
And then the larger part of that conversation will be exactly what you said. And then lastly, you'll see a new item to the agenda, and I hope for this to be a regular monthly item as part of our meeting, which is Tech This Out. And that's to showcase not just the technology part of our group, but the innovation and instructional component of our team as well. And I wanted to highlight some of the great work that's going on in the classrooms and how we're engaging our students in technology. So as you may know, this week is Computer Science Education Week in schools across the United States. And as part of that's typically held in December. It's an event that's used to inspire and engage students in learning, centered around computer science, advocate for equity, and celebrate the contributions of students, teachers, and partners of the Greenburgh Central School District at all levels that are participating in this event. So some of the things in concert with this week's event have been at the elementary school, L.F. Jackson. We had Ms. Weir from the middle school bring her class down to the elementary school and do a peer-to-peer instructional session where the older group came down and through reading and literacy We taught problem solving and coding and did a really great carpet activity with the students around programming and problem solving and developing instructions, all through storytelling and through literacy. So it was a really great peer-led activity, and I want to give Ms. Weir credit for coordinating that and working with Ms. Simone and the LFJ staff to put that in place. At our RJ Bailey School, Mr. McLee is working this week to do their paper tower challenge. So the students there are engaging in the Greenburgh Central School District design process to build as tall and as strong of a tower they can simply out of paper. And they'll be judged on a number of different categories. In fact, I'll be there tomorrow myself as one of the judges to be judging some of the group's work, and I'm looking forward to seeing that come to fruition as they've been working hard on that. And lastly, in the high school, Miss Manning's class engaged, and I was able to sit in on a virtual session that she had arranged with one of the principal computer science engineers at Amazon. And she did a wonderful session on how computer science really ravels into all of the things that we do. It was a really great hook to use Amazon as a lead into that for the students. They were really able to engage with the conversation and see just exactly how computer science really ravels into our day-to-day routines. What was most powerful, I think, for them and the students was that they were able to ask questions of the engineer and really talk about what are the challenges that you faced in this industry? How did you get into it? What venues of training? And I think it really gave them a lens of where they can be creative or how they can get themselves in a direction to follow this pathway. So all in all, it was a very, very energizing and engaging session for them. And again, Ms. Manny did a wonderful job of coordinating that. Wanted to thank her for that as well. That concludes my open session component of this report.
Did any of that get recorded?
I have pictures, we have pictures, still pictures. I don't have video, but I'm happy to provide pictures from some of those events.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other question? The only thing I want to say is thank you, Mr. Elise, for adding the context to us, right? Typically in this committee, a lot of times we get so stuck in the nitty-gritty of the infrastructure and everything else going on that we sometimes neglect to bring things like this to the attention of the community. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any open session, new business? Okay. I guess we're moving along so we can get to the concert. Okay, no problem. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and we're going to close the open session portion of the meeting. Let me just get the time here. So, open session. Close at
5:32.
thank you, 5:32. Is there a motion to move into closed session
Discuss matters affecting student safety.
and contract?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so with that said, for anyone watching at home, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your attention. We will now go into closed session. We'll talk about those